Not all forms of healing are equal. I wanted to discuss this because I've seen quite a few people online act like such a thing is the case, that all forms of healing are actually equal and that doesn't really matter what route you take because eventually you'll be able to heal. And while there is that saying that time heals all, that doesn't actually mean that someone gets healed from time. What it more so means is that they just shove things down or ignore them so much or find ways to cope with them that eventually whatever it is they needed to heal from kind of falls into the past and they don't think about it as much anymore. It may not immediately affect them as much, but since they didn't actually work on healing from it consciously, all it really does is lead to these unconscious patterns of behavior where as soon as you encounter a similar event that triggers you, like whatever it was in the past that you needed to heal from, now all these buried emotions will come rising right to the surface and they'll immediately impact you and change your behavior. That's where you start acting out on conditioned responses. And it's not something many of us will do consciously. We won't really notice that it's happening if we're still in that unaware state. So this is the issue that not choosing to heal consciously will create for you. This is what can happen if you pursue forms of healing, like sleeping around after a breakup, or drinking a ton of alcohol, smoking too much weed, watching a lot of porn, playing a lot of video games, things like that, where you're not actually focused on healing. You're just focused on ignoring the way that you feel, trying to escape from it because it's too difficult to tackle it head first. So what you really want to do to heal consciously is go inwards, inner work. That is basically one of the only ways to consciously heal. And you need to go inside of yourself and tackle the root causes that are driving your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So the way that you can work on healing consciously is through self-awareness, tackling the root causes, and then reframing. So I'll jump into these three things individually to show you what I mean. The first one, self-awareness. You need to have self-awareness if you want to be able to heal properly, because that means basically noticing how your patterns of behavior or thoughts or feelings impact you. You need to be able to notice when you're holding yourself back, when your lack of healing is affecting you, if you want to be able to address it. You don't want to be unconscious, and being unaware is being unconscious. That's where your old conditioning will affect your behavior in your entire life. So we want to avoid that. Now, how can you practice self-awareness? Well, there's actually a trick that I learned a while back. I can't remember who I learned this from, but it's basically setting reminders to check in with yourself throughout the day. And checking in with yourself would basically just mean asking yourself, how do I feel right now? What have I been thinking? What am I doing in this moment? The whole point of this is to get you to turn inward and be present in the moment and notice how your thoughts, behavior, and feelings are affecting you in the here and now. Because the more that you do this, it'll make it easier for you to do this at any given moment. And that means you'll start noticing eventually how your old patterns of conditioned behavior affect you. You'll notice when you're feeling them. Like, I can actually get to a point where I notice that I'm behaving a certain way because of things that happened in my childhood. I can notice them. I know when that old conditioning is affecting my behavior in the here and now. You need to be able to notice this if you want to be able to heal from it, if you want to be able to address it. So practice that, maybe even set reminders on your phone, alarms, that sort of thing, that just urge you to check in throughout the day and see how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and what you're doing. Now, after you've practiced self-awareness enough to notice your patterns of conditioned behavior, the next thing you want to do is tackle the root causes. What is causing you to think in this way, or feel this way, or behave in this way? What is driving your behavior at the end of the day? So let's use an example here of, let's say, whenever you get rejected, you feel unlovable. Okay, why is that? What is causing you to feel unlovable whenever you get rejected? Okay, maybe it goes back to your childhood. Rather often you'll find that childhood conditioning still affects you as an adult, because back when we were children, we didn't have the proper tools to deal with society's conditioning. So if your parents or a teacher or other school kids told you you sucked and you weren't good enough, that nobody would ever love you, you wouldn't know how to heal from all that BS that they're spewing into your ears. You wouldn't know how to properly handle it. In fact, for a child, rather often, we believe all those things, right? we wouldn't question a parent or a teacher telling us that we're unlovable. We'd think, oh God, they're right, I'll never be loved. That's the problem, right? So a lot of that childhood conditioning will stick with you until adulthood, because only once you're an adult do you have the tools needed to get rid of all of it, to clean it all out, to not let it bother you anymore. So you need to go back to all those root causes, which very often will mean going back to your childhood, to think about what is causing you to feel the way that you do, to even think the way that you do, that ultimately ends up leading to the way that you then behave in those moments. So think about whatever it is that triggered you. Why does it make you feel the way that you do? Why does it trigger you? Why does it make you have certain patterns of behavior? What is causing all of that? You really want to dig down as deeply as possible to find those root causes. Now for the final step, once you've gotten good at finding those root causes, the final thing you want to do is work on reframing. Now reframing can be a bit tricky, right? A lot of people believe that the only way to reframe is to get good at noticing when those moments trigger you and then trying to reframe your thoughts or feelings or behaviors in that exact moment. But I've found that can be really difficult and also rather rare, right? Like let's go back to that feeling unlovable when you get rejected example. Well, if you were to practice reframing that and you were to practice it only in those moments, then that means you're only practicing it when you actually get rejected. How often do you get rejected? Can you truly practice all that often if you're only doing it in the exact moments where you get triggered? No. So let's not tackle reframing in that way. Let's be more conscious about it. Instead, you want to practice reframing outside of those moments. So think about them consciously. Spend some time to meditate on it. Maybe set aside 5 minutes of your day, every day, to just focus on reframing your triggers. So for that prior example of feeling unlovable when you get rejected, this might look like you setting aside 5 minutes of your time to dig deeper into that and start reframing it. So now that you know why you feel unlovable when you get rejected, because maybe it went back to your childhood and you had a teacher or a parent telling you that, now you can start reframing this, asking yourself questions to dig down to the truth of these things and whether or not they're actually valid. Because rather often when you dig down enough, you'll find that your limiting beliefs that are caused by your triggers or prior conditioning are actually a bit delusional. They're not grounded in reality. With that unlovable example, are you truly unlovable? Think about that. There's about 8 billion people on the planet or so, they say. Now I get not all of them are adults, but even taking the adults, that's billions of people. Are you telling me there's not a single one of those billions who would be capable of loving you as you are in the here and now with all your flaws? Really? Nobody? Like nobody at all out of billions of people who'd be willing to love you. There's just no way in hell that that's true. So this is what I mean, asking yourself questions to dig down and see whether or not your limiting beliefs are actually valid. Because the more you can pick them apart, now they're not going to affect you in the future. The more you can tell yourself that, hey, you're not actually unlovable. That's BS. That's a belief that comes from your childhood, from all these people who are surrounding you, who weren't supportive. Like if your parents, your teachers, or other school kids were telling you you're unlovable, why should you listen to them? They sound like crappy people if they would tell you that, right? Why are they not supportive of you? Why do they not want to see you be happy and help you rise up and become the best you can be? I just wouldn't listen to anyone like that. So that makes it easier to reject any BS conditioning they implanted in my mind. Because I would just think, you know, this isn't someone who has my best interest in mind, so I'm just not going to listen to them. I'm not going to let their limiting belief of me being unlovable be true in my mind, because that's BS. They implanted it there, not me. And it's not indicative of reality. So there you go. That's how you can start reframing. Just digging deeper, asking yourself a bunch of questions to find the truth behind your limiting beliefs. And rather often you'll find that they're a bit delusional. They're not true at all, and that can make it easier to let go of them. So that way when you do find yourself in that situation that triggers you, again, going back to that example, you're getting rejected and feeling unlovable. Now when someone rejects you, you aren't going to think you're unlovable anymore, because you'll have spent all this time dissecting that stupid limiting belief, and you'll know that it's not true. It's not planted in reality anymore. It's fake. So if you get rejected, you may have that thought come into your head, because again, it's conditioned, right? You may think for a moment, oh man, I feel unlovable. But then you'll catch yourself and you'll go, but I know that's not true. I may feel that temporarily now, but that's because of my old conditioning. And this limiting belief is not true. I am not truly unlovable. Instead, you'll think it's more so that this person rejected me because they, for whatever reason, are not interested in me in this exact moment in time. And that's okay. I don't know why they did it, because more often than not, people won't exactly tell you why. But it doesn't matter. You don't need to know why. All that you need to know is that for whatever reason, they are not willing to choose you right now, but that's irrelevant. You can move on without them and find people who will be willing to choose you. This is a way that you can start thinking the more that you practice reframing things. It's literally almost like having somebody protecting you and supporting you with you always. And it's you. That's the best part about it, right? It's like a superpower. It's you being more self-reliant and being almost like your own motivational coach. You can help yourself get through these difficult moments by just reframing them, spending all that time consciously thinking about them, whether or not they're true, and then reminding yourself of the reality of things. It's just such a useful tool. So that's truly, in my opinion, how you can go about healing the proper way, by dealing with self-awareness, root causes, and then reframing things so that you can finally start tackling life more consciously and not letting these triggers from your past, this conditioning, affect your behavior in the here and now. That is how you can heal. It's far better route than trying to sleep around or drink alcohol or smoke too much or do whatever other vices to try to ignore your feelings and shove them down just so that one day later in the future they all come rising back up to the surface and completely self-sabotage you. It's just not worth it. So don't run away from your problems. Don't run away from your healing. Tackle it head on. Be conscious about it, and you'll find it's really not that scary. And your life will get so much better practicing all these things that eventually you won't want to run away anymore. Instead, you'll be happy to tackle healing head on. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I truly hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Arrivederci.